But the indignation of the Lord Yahweh was upon all nations. So every nation is going to be judged by their own father. Spirit of their armies, he utterly destroyed them.
Well, of course, all you got to do is go through the history. We always use Pharaoh as an example, but you can go to Babylon. Look how much time the Most High destroyed the king in Babylon. The first one was
Nimrod.
No. Well, of course, most definitely, but when he turned him into an animal, Nebuchadnezzar, Tuwada. And then after Nebuchadnezzar,
that was the Babylon.
Neo, Tuwada. And then after Nebuchadnezzar, there was another Babylonian that came, drank out of the vessels, brought whores into the temple, and he just got a word told to him by Daniel, because there was a vision. There was a vision, and his kingdom was taken from him that night without a sword being lifted up.
Furious, right?
Furious.
Because
Shalom Akim, Shalom. First and foremost, Kar Halalia, La Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh, Haraka Kodash. Let the elders that rule the kind of worthy double honors. Lead the labor in order doctrine, which with the apostles and the elders of Great Milton, GMS. Third, I want to say peace and salutation to all the Akims, houses, and Maris that continue to push out this truth and honesty and sincerity. To the name of Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh, Bahashem, Haraka Kodash. My name is Agabaga. Back again with another presentation. This video, my title of this video, your days are numbered, Esau, okay, aka make Mene, Tekel, Upharsin, right? Like as the brothers were going into, this is a GMS Toronto camp, last camp that we had, and one of the things that actually caught my attention, was when the brothers were going into, the story in Daniel where, the king at the time was actually Belshazzar, which was Nebuchadnezzar's grandson. Right, and this came in his time, right? This story came at the time of Belshazzar the king, right? So I'm gonna go into the actual story itself. I'm bringing out a few precepts here and there, and but basically, it's the same thing that happened before, way back to the Babylonians, when, the writings were on the wall. It's something that's gonna happen with the so-called white man's kingdom, right? Edom. As you can see, this man's kingdom is falling down rapidly, and it's basically, it's only a matter of time before, it gets taken out, right? And who knows, it could happen, it happened, it happened the same night that these words came up, that King Belshazzar, was taken down, and his kingdom was given to the Medes, right? So let me actually go ahead and grab that scripture. So this is book of Daniel chapter 5, start from the top, and it reads, Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. So Belshazzar, that was the king's name, and he was throwing a party for his noblemen. Second verse, Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar, it says here his father, but really it's his grandfather, and had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his prince, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of the Most High, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and the concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of the gods of gold and silver, of brass and of iron, of wood and of stone. So right there, as in this is going back, to when at the time of King Joachim of King Judah, he was taken, as in the Most High sent the Babylonians, and they besieged Jerusalem, the city, and they took down, the King Joachim, they took him down, and they basically took possession of the vessels, that were in the temple, the golden, the chalice that that the high priest would use. They took out all those golden things out of the temple, and so basically they took them as booty, right? So basically once they brought them to Babylon, and then they had them for there. So now what happened was over time, as in they put these items in a storage somewhere, and they never use them. But here comes Belshazzar, with his, with his pride, with his wantonness, he decided to go ahead and actually use the vessels that were, that were godly. He decided to go out and use them, for to impress his noblemen, right? So and he went ahead and did it. So going to the 5th verse says, in the same hour came 4 fingers, right? It's like in the same hour came 4 fingers of man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw that the part of the hand was that wrote. Next verse. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. So as in, that's how as in, this king, he knew that that he fucked up, and he knew what he was doing was wrong, but did it anyways. And then when shit got real, as you can see how, like, how, that side, how that side, of seeing, a hand, like a hand, come out of nowhere, writing things on the wall, that really shook him, right? So this man, this man was shitting bricks, basically. Next verse. The king cried aloud to bring the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and shew me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet, and have, scarlet just means purple, and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler of the kingdom. This is where Daniel comes in, okay, or Daniel Allah, right? Next verse. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writings, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and the lords were astonished. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father light and understanding, and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king, I say, thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. So this is where Daniel makes his ushering in, right? And Daniel, it was not, as it was the, he was the wisest man east of Babylon. It was the wisest man of all the men in Babylon, because he was able to, break down, the dream of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had, right? Because we're going to the next verse, verse 12. For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams, showing of hard sentences, and the solving of doubts were found in this same Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar, now let Daniel be called, and he will shew thee the interpretation. Right? And like, as in this, they think about it, like, as in this very the power that we serve, the Heavenly Father, the Most High power of Yasha Allah, He's a great power as it is, as you can see, as in, think about, a power that's able to make you, make you dream someone else's dreams and actually be able to come up with the interpretation of it, as in that's, that's like telekinesis on a whole other level. Being able to, it's something being able to see someone, read someone's thoughts, but being able to actually dream their dreams and actually be able to interpret them and actually break to them, and then you be the one that breaks to them. I mean, that's power on another level, man. Okay. So continuing on, it says, I have even verse 13. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou that Daniel, which are the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of the Jewry? I've even heard of thee that the Spirit of God is in thee, and that light and understanding are excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, and have been brought before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have, let's actually down to verse 17. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. It's like verse 18. It says, O the king, the most high power gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would he slew, and whom he would he kept alive, and whom he would he set up, and whom he would he put down. But when his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and he took his glory from him, and he was driven from the sons of men. And so that's what the elder was going into. As in that was Nebuchadnezzar. Whom the Lord actually turned into a beast. I mean, like, man. Basically, the Hellfather like changed his whole molecular structure, man. That's scary. And it says, and he was driven from the sons of men. The same thing's gonna happen to Esau. Okay, you damn Esau called Caucasians, man. Right? It says, and he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, which is rain, till he knew that the Most High Power ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointeth over it whomsoever he will. Okay, and thou his son Belshazzar has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this, right? So like his grandson knew all about knew what happened to his father. Knew that he got humbled by the heavenly Father, but then guess what? He ends up doing the same mistake. He ends up committing the same sin as his father did. Surely, as in that should that people, as in people come back, and that goes into reincarnation. But it says, but has lifted up thyself again, the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords and wives and thy concubines have drank wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the Most High in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thy ways, hast thou not glorified. Then it was part of the hand sent from him, and the writing was written. And this is the writing. Then it was, like I read again, then it was the part of the hand sent from him, and the writing was written. And this is the writing that was written: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. And as you can see, there's this TV show called The Society, right? As in the bottom of the bottom of the screen, as in that I've been watching this TV show, for the past couple of weeks now, like that's actually one of the reasons why I want to do this lesson, it's in a spirit, right? And it says, as in this basically what happens in this TV show, as in a group of kids actually, a group of students end up going on a trip, leaving their hometown, but then all of a sudden, as in there's a breakdown on the bus, then they have to be dropped off, but they end up getting dropped off at exactly where they got picked up, in their hometown, but the thing is, like, all the people are basically like, the movie goes, the show is it goes into, like, basically, as in being condemned, as in being having to be being made to pay for the sins of your parents, so to speak, or like, basically, when judgment comes. Okay, guess what? About verse 25 again, and this is the writing on the this is the writing that was written. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Right? Next verse. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and found wanting. Peres, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Right? Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be third ruler of the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. Okay, same night, Daniel got put to death. Right. Next verse. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Right. That's when Darius, of the Medes, I believe. Right. Okay, so I just want to bring that out. Go ahead and end it there. So like basically, America, Babylon the Great. Your days have been numbered, right? And your time is up. And you've been balanced in the weights, and you've been found wanting, right? And that's why you see like all these breakouts, all these riots happening. These statues are being toppled down right, left, and center. As in people are, more divided than ever. And like come these elections, come November, when the election happens, and actually they announce they win the president. That's when that's when there's gonna be a real reckoning. You see. Days, days are numbered. Okay, you've been found wanting, right? And your kingdom is divided. Then I wanna say DTA about the ball. Also wanna say Barak Tayahawa, Barak Tayahushai, Barak Tayahawa, Barak Tayahushai, Kahali Amla Yahawa Bashmi Shai Wahar Kakudash. So wanna say let the elders rule kind of all the labor honors, play the labor and honor doctrine, which the apostles and the elders of the Muslim GMS. Third one, say peace and salutation to all the Akim, the Hawais, and Bawais continue to push out this to in sincerity. My name is Agaraga. Till next time, shalom to the leg, shalom.
Same book, it's like the same book that I took back. It tells you in that book, when you read that whole history, that I think the Persian came, the Persian came and had them surrounded for months. But there is the Medes ruled first, because they were doing just like how this came going down. Distract the people better than surfaces, so that they'll